Wow, this storm, Hurricane Melissa, a 140-mile-an-hour major hurricane, on her way to becoming a Category 5 storm, with winds of at least 157 miles per hour or higher once it gets to a Category 5 storm. I started saying this a couple of videos ago, but honestly, I wish for my people down here in this part of the world, in Jamaica, Cuba, Turks and Caicos Islands, that this was not the case. Sadly, it is. Now, this is really looking rough from this point forward, especially for Jamaica. Originally, the hurricane models were being quite aggressive with the millibars of barometric pressure. Well, really now, they're all pretty close to accurate as far as the ground truth to what the models are saying. Though the storm is really capable of even getting stronger than what the models say. Right now, at the time of making this video, Melissa's barometric pressure is 952 millibars. As the pressure drops, the storm will continue to strengthen. The HWRF model is looking something like this. It's taking Melissa a little further south and comes even further west with the initial landfall that happens in Jamaica. And this comes sometime Tuesday morning, and it'll happen as a Category 5 if this model run is correct. If there's any positive side to this at all, it is that once Melissa starts to move north, then northeast, it will be rather quickly. If the HWRF model is right, landfall will be around 2 in the morning of Tuesday the 28th. She would already be moving off the northern side of the island about 5 a.m. Now remember, this is not a forecast, but rather simply what the HWRF model is saying at this time. The HMON model has Melissa drifting a little further south, but cutting north and then northeast sooner. Not time-wise, but location-wise. Before she gets to the western end of the island, Melissa starts her turn and crosses the island a little closer to the center of the island. Though this run weakens Melissa quite a little bit right before landfall. I don't necessarily buy this. Maybe the HMON model is hitting on something sooner than the other models, but with everything as far as conditions, environment, water temperature, and less wind shear from the west, I just don't see any reason why it would all of a sudden start to weaken. That's why I'm really not in agreement with the HMON model at this time. Now, the HFAS-A model really is in line with the level of strength that I feel she could be at when making landfall on Tuesday, October 28th, with a barometric pressure read of as low as 913 millibars, means this storm, if models are accurate, could have winds get as high as 180 miles per hour sustained. This landfall, if this model run, again, is accurate, brings Melissa almost right through the center of the island, with actual landfall to be made a little after noon on Tuesday, the 28th, just outside of Kingston. Last but not least, we will look at the HFAS-B model run. This run also brings Melissa a bit more south than a couple of the other models, but it also makes her cut north and northeast only quicker than the HWRF model. That's the first model run that we discussed in the video this morning. As far as expected strength, when making landfall, the pressure drops as low as 917 millibars, but rebounds to 921 prior to making actual landfall. Nonetheless, even if winds drop by, let's say, 5 or 10 miles per hour, what really does that even matter when the storm has winds of up to 180 miles per hour, sustained? Like 175 or 170 is much better. At this point, regardless of which model run proves to be the most accurate, literally they are all saying really the same thing, the same roundabout location and strength. At this point, if you live in Jamaica, it's probably too late for you to leave the island or anything, but take as many precautions as you can. We're talking about 1 to 3 feet of rain, maybe even upwards of 40 inches in some spots in eastern Jamaica. The thing to remember is that the next 3 or 4 days is going to be the worst of Melissa. Once she travels across Jamaica, thoughts are that she will be back to around a strong Category 2 or 3 storm by the time she makes landfall in Cuba, sometime on Wednesday. meaning wind will be somewhere between 105 and 130 miles per hour. Still a very dangerous storm with intense heavy rain, and the damage could still be devastating. The Hurricane Center continues to have hurricane warnings posted for Jamaica and hurricane watches out for the southern coast of Cuba. Tropical storm warnings and hurricane watches remain in effect for Haiti. It looked as though yesterday that Bermuda may get spared. Today, that does not look to be the case any longer. Probably getting hit sometime Friday. So the question is, when does Melissa start to get out of here? I'm sure you're like, come on, Steve. I've heard about this storm for over a week now. When will it be done? The answer to that question is this weekend. Friday it gets past Bermuda, and from there it will eventually become extratropical over the much cooler waters of the northern Atlantic. Still, it does look to be missing the east coast of the continental U.S., as well as Atlantic Canada. So that's great news for the folks in those regions. And another question that you may have is, why is this storm moving so slow? Now, the reason this storm is moving so slow, and all of a sudden will get up and move in a few days, is the outflow from this system is much more healthy than it was even 24 or 36 hours ago, as well as the eye wall being well defined at this point, as you can see on the infrared satellite. The shear is not as strong from the west, which has allowed Melissa to develop an inner core. Since it's within the three steering currents, the two high pressures, one to the west and one to the east, then the ridge to the north, the ridge that's eventually almost going to reach down and grab Melissa, pulling her northeast out of the Caribbean and into the Atlantic, and then the northern Atlantic eventually. That has been what has allowed Melissa to just almost sit still in the most favorable body of water on the entire planet and just form a hurricane. Favorable because the water in the ocean in this part of the world is almost as warm as bathwater, for instance. I mean, we're talking like 90 degrees Fahrenheit in spots. And it's dense, the warm water. It's not just on the top of the water like it is in some places, because of the sun. This is basically Melissa's fuel that's helping her thrive right now. Finally, by Friday afternoon, the storm should be completely passing Bermuda. So, it should be from there, it should just be over water. So we basically should be done with the storm by then. As far as a concern for people and lives. That's pretty much it for this update. Thanks everyone, and I'll talk to you probably either later this afternoon or tomorrow morning with another update. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care.